Whether you play the lottery or not, find out its impact on South Carolina education. Coming up next on Carolina People. Good morning. Welcome to Carolina People. This morning we're at the Myrtle Beach Herald. We're focused on the South Carolina Education Lottery, and we're visiting with its executive director, Ernie Passailaigue, Jr. Good morning, Ernie.
Good to be here, Greg.
Thank you so much for coming in on a Friday morning.
Thank you. I mean, it's a privilege to be before the people of Horry County and the greater PD, actually.
Absolutely, and of course a heck of a lot of North Carolina. You know, a quarter of our viewers are in Robeson and Scotland County in North Carolina, the homes of Lumberton and Laurinburg. Right. So a heck of a lot of folks travel through those areas as well as live in those areas. But surely the PD and, you know, it's amazing to think about the impact the education lottery's had on these areas.
Yes, true, and we'll get into that. But it's an amazing experience to start a business from scratch with no employees and no anything. I mean, you just walk in the door and you're renting a temporary facility, and within 5 months you're in business selling lottery tickets. And last year we were close to $1 billion business. So.
$1 billion?
$1 billion.
You start those words with a B and not an M, and that impacts a lot of folks.
It does. Yes.
That's incredible, Arnie.
Yes.
Well, that must be very exhilarating for you then.
It is, but we understand that the question about a lottery was a divided question when the referendum was passed in 2000. And I run a state agency, I run a business, and we don't try to change people's minds about a lottery. We're here to try to run a business in an efficient way and make sure that we do so in consideration of all viewpoints of the people of South Carolina.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, that's exactly right. You could spend a heck of a lot of time wondering what folks are being concerned about, how folks perceive the lottery. But obviously the important aspect is what you can do for the state. Absolutely.
Now that we have the lottery, it's a fact. I think most people say, well, if we have a lottery, let's make sure it's run efficiently and maximize in a way that's consistent with the values of South Carolina, the return to the stakeholders, which is the people of South Carolina.
That's exactly right. On Monday, we had a guest in, Bernie Dove, who's on the state board of Santee Cooper, and hearing him talk about certain aspects of Santee Cooper and a lot of the desires to change certain things, ways Santee Cooper spend their funds. And of course, the real important thing is the impact they can have on South Carolina, and they have a dramatic impact. Again, as you say, they're here just like yourself. You all are here and you're making that impact, and when you hear of the kind of impact that you all have, I think I saw on y'all's website early this morning, the SCEducationLottery.com.
Right.
$664 million being reinvested into schooling.
Yeah, that's transfers to date, and that's a lot of money. And I think you really have to ask yourself, since I was in the state senate for 13 years, knowing the attitude in Columbia, and I'm not criticizing that, I'm just saying this is a fact. I don't think there's going to be any general tax increases in the foreseeable future. There certainly hasn't been any in the last decade or so. So if there was not a lottery, where would the state fill in this gap, this funding gap, which is significant? Altogether, through the end of this fiscal year, June 30th, 05, the legislature has appropriated $839 million of lottery money for education.
$839 million?
Yes. And it's divided up in a way, most people think this is a college scholarship program. It is not. It's much more than that. About 62% of our net proceeds goes to higher ed, which includes the college scholarships, like at Horry Georgetown Tech. But a third of it right now goes to K through 12. Most people do not even understand that. It's the worst kept secret in South Carolina, and one of the reasons we're on the show is to talk about that. You know, who makes the decisions about where this money goes and how that pie is divided up.
Folks know it go to colleges, but no, of course they don't know it goes to K through 12.
Right.
How is it impacting K? Well, real quick, Ernie, about yourself. We've got to know that.
Okay.
You said you spent time in the Senate. That means you were representing some part of South Carolina. What part was that?
Unfortunately, it wasn't Horry County, because the Grand Strand is beautiful, but it was Charleston and Berkeley County.
Okay.
And I spent 13 years, had a marvelous experience, the privilege of serving with a lot of great people, and some of my friends here in Horry County are certainly in that colleague base.
Are you originally from the Low Country?
I am, Charleston. So we have the great state of Charleston, and we have the great state of Horry.
No, there is the independent Republic of Horry.
That's right, that's right.
You be careful talking that way.
I'm sorry about that.
No, and of course, you know, again, less than a third of my viewers are here in Horry County.
Yes.
The bulk of my viewers are in Darlington and Marion and Dillon and Marlboro and Florence and obviously those southeastern North Carolina counties. So we're very sensitive to the fact that even though we're broadcasting here in the city of Myrtle Beach, surely our tower in Marion County is reaching a heck of a lot of folks in 2 states and in different regions. But the Low Country does so much for South Carolina. You know, obviously, we won't even talk about the results of the election on Tuesday, but the impact that folks like Senator Fritz Hollings have made on not only the Low Country but the whole state, and that importance of having folks from different parts of the state representing us throughout for so many years has been a big impact. And we hear about names coming out of Charleston for so long.
Yes.
They continue to have an impact.
Colorful folks. But you're right, and the great thing in getting around the state, what you see is the beauty of South Carolina and the diversity. We have the coast and the Grand Strand and the lower part of the state, very sensitive to tourism, obviously, and that's an important economic engine. And in the middle part of the state, and the PD is a little bit different, and the upstate is a little bit different from the, you know, so when you bring it all together, it's like a quilt. It's a wonderful, wonderful group of people making up our population.
Much like the retailers that have come on board with the Education Lottery, you've got lots of different types of retailers that have stepped up to the plate to make that commitment, essentially to give back to their community in a way they've never given back in the past.
Greg, you make a great point. We pay a commission by state law, 7%, and most retailers, if you talk to them, small business people, they say that the lottery is really marginal in terms of income, and it is, because it's labor intensive, obviously, to sell lottery tickets. I think there's a greater sense with the retailer base that not only they're hopefully marginally profitable from lottery, but they're also adding to their bottom line with sale of other products. And the most important thing for as far as I'm concerned is they're doing something positive for the people of South Carolina. This $839 million didn't come, you know, out of the thin air. It took a lot of hard work to generate that money so that the people of South Carolina have enhanced educational opportunities.
We're talking about a lot of retailers, too.
3,500. We should, according to the original game plan, the business plan adopted by a consultant before I was brought on board, we should have a maximization of retailers of about 3,100. So we have pretty well stretched that in the max. We're about out of equipment, to tell you the truth. And our retailers are very diverse. 77% of our retailers are convenience stores with gas. That's probably no surprise to most people. But we have most of the major food chains in the state. So outside of, I think, Harris Teeter, but Piggly Wiggly, Buy Low, Publix, Food Line. I mean, you go down the list. But a lot of our stores are little mom and pop operations, 1 or 2 or 3 retailers, retail sites. So it's very important, and it's a diverse group of people.
Oh yeah, it's gotten folks into those mom and pop stores that they'd never seen before.
Absolutely.
Gives those mom and pops, who are really the thread of a community oftentimes, an opportunity to communicate with folks they've never spent time communicating with.
Exactly. We were in a shop in Socastee a couple of days ago, and it was a tobacco shop, actually, and the gentleman and lady that owned the business was telling me the same thing, the anecdotal evidence of people coming in that normally wouldn't shop there and then finding, you know, the variety of products they like.
Sure, sure. That quilt, that's such a perfect thing. And, of course, as you say, there's so many aspects of folks who had views prior to recognizing the impact that y'all have and a little shifting. Not that you're asked them to shift their opinions. You're not seeking a moral standard here, but you're seeking the recognition of where those funds are going and letting folks know the commitment that y'all have made is to really give back.
Yeah, our mission right here today is really to educate people in terms of the funds of the lottery and to answer, you know, the commonly asked questions. But the important thing for us is whether you like the lottery and whether you play the lottery is your personal opinion. But you ought to understand what the proceeds and how to access those benefits. We've had over 305,000 lottery-funded scholarships through the spring semester this year awarded to date. That's not including the fall. So that's a lot of South Carolina households. If you look at our lottery, in the last demographic survey that was conducted for the lottery, 53% of the people of age 18 years old or older played, 47% did not play. And so there's about half the population play. If you look at the Georgia lottery, which of course is more than a decade old, they have an approval rating in Georgia of about probably in the mid-80s, which is phenomenal. And doesn't mean that 95% of the people of Georgia play the Georgia lottery, and they surely do not. But what they like about it, and what I can tell you from being in the legislature for so long, they see a direct correlation, the money and where it's going, and they like where it's going, and they like that that piece, that education piece. And that's what's happened here in South Carolina. I think we have general approval, and I'm telling you this just from a sense of what I see around the communities I visit, is most people are surprised it has been marketed in a tone that is appropriate for South Carolina, and at the same time making sure that the money goes where it should go, which is absolutely to education.
And that word's so key. You know, it'd be so easy to promote it as lottery, lottery, lottery. Mm-hmm. But the central word on your shirt is education. It comes out right in the middle. It's the first thing that folks are drawn to. Obviously, they're drawn to the palmetto,
right,
the palmetto tree there. But education jumps out. It's the law. I mean, it's the most recognized word on the logo.
Absolutely, and you know that's what we're in business to provide those educational dollars for the governor and the legislature to appropriate.
Talk about K through 12. How are y'all impacting K through 12? Because of course a lot of our, and I want you to do that now because it's about 7:15, and a lot of viewers have got to get out to get the kids to school or get to work.
Yeah, absolutely. A third of every dollar that's been appropriated, a third of $839 million, $276 million have been appropriated to K through 12. Most of that is targeted to two programs, kindergarten through the fifth grade and the Education Accountability Act. That makes up the bulk of it. But First Steps program has received lottery funds this year. Grades 6 through 8 has received lottery funds. Millions of dollars of new school buses have been purchased, or older school buses have been refurbished. And so it just crosses the gamut. Right now, if you look at the state appropriation, the general fund appropriation for primary education, K through 12 in this state, we make up 4.6% of the total appropriation to the local districts. A commonly asked question we get, and this is probably one that is on your mind, if the lottery is doing so well, why are we laying off school teachers? Why are our property taxes on schools going up? Why don't we have supplies in the classrooms? And that's a great question. The lottery was designed to enhance, to supplement the existing educational budget. Greg, in this state, and your members of the House and Senate can attest to this, from the last few years, we've had $1 billion shortfall in our sales and income tax. So the lottery last year made up $341 million of that, but we can't make up the entire amount. There's no way, shape, or form we can do that. So really, we have served a purpose in terms of that funding gap, but there is a huge funding gap due to the recession that we've experienced over a period of time.
How can viewers make a difference? If they're not viewers that would actively get out, if they wouldn't actively get out and buy lottery tickets, is there still something that they could do? Even just helping get the word out about it?
Absolutely. I mean, and I can, again, my service in the state Senate, I can tell you, first of all, we're a state agency. We're spending OPM, other people's money. So when we take a dime in or a penny in, we understand that that penny, to the extent we received it, is in trust for the people of South Carolina. We don't want to squander money. We want to make sure we maximize that dollar that goes to education. Once the dollar goes there, once we make that transfer to the legislature to appropriate, they need to be vigilant in terms of their members of the House and Senate and the governor as to what happens with this money. If people want more to a certain program in education, they need to contact their House and Senate member. I can tell you, in the state Senate, I used to relish the fact that people would call me or write me or email me in terms of what their desires were in terms of public policy. This is one way where they can keep abreast of that.
We were with House member Alan Clemens yesterday. He was talking about, obviously we're talking about I-73.
Right.
And he talks about just let your city councilman know, let your county councilman know, because they will get to those key players. They will get to the folks who are going to be making the trips to Washington to make those calls. But take the time out. He said he talked to Jim Clyburn, and Jim Clyburn says on average he will get no more than 6 letters on a particular issue, a pressing issue in Washington. He said he has gotten so many more on I-73 alone. And of course, as you say, if a viewer or anyone has the opportunity to get out, if they see that impact occurring in their schools, let their legislator, their senator know about it.
Yeah, and you got a great program here in making sure people understand the importance of voting. And you're right. And my friend, the representative, was right. Unfortunately, there's just a little bit too much apathy in the general public right now. And they can make an impact on public policy by picking up the phone and calling their member of the House and Senate, by writing them a letter, by email, which is a very easy thing to do, and, or just, contacting them for an appointment. And I used to look forward to those particular cases where people would take the time out of their schedule to contact me about things that they had on their mind.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think about that time when you were serving, representing others, Ernie.
Mm-hmm.
Well, for you, your first time stepping out into the ring, what was that like? When you think about stepping out of the ring for the first time, and then, of course, your willingness to take on this appointment as executive director, how did that work? Maybe you can share with the viewers real quick about whether this was an appointment, if you gave up your position to be able to take this on, but step back in time 13 or 15 years when you began your first service. What was that like?
Well, some things happened in my life, Greg, and it just got me off the couch talking about issues, and I decided to run for office, and I decided to run for the open state Senate seat. I lost that race, but I was the better person for it. And so the next time I offered, I won. I was privileged to win that seat. And so the great news is that people can make a difference in their politics, whether it's just contacting somebody or getting active in their precinct, grassroots level, or running for office. And I would encourage everybody to be involved. That's what makes America great. In this particular case, after 13 years of service, I was also a college professor for a while. So.
I saw that at Baptist College. That's right, an
yes.
accounting professor.
Mm-hmm. And, my first love is education. So this opportunity came along, and I wanted to prove something to myself and the people of South Carolina, that a South Carolinian who had no lottery experience could run a business. Basically, we set out to hire the best and brightest we could hire. Of the 100 or so people we initially hired to run this business, all but 6, I should say only 6, had lottery experience. The rest of them were just great people, native South Carolinians, who were very talented, who learned the business. And right now we have people from all over the United States and the world coming in to visit our lottery and seeing what we're doing right. We're getting ready to host a delegation in New Zealand next week.
You're kidding.
Ireland, Thailand, Mexico. We've had people in California. So we run a great lottery, and the statistics will prove that. We run a lottery in terms of fiscally conservative management. We run a lottery in terms of conservative ideas on how to market it. We market this as an entertainment vehicle. If somebody is thinking about playing the lottery, I say you need to meet 3 criteria. Surely you must be of age. That's a law, 18 years old or older. But secondly, you ought to look at it as entertainment. In other words, if you're looking at playing the lottery, think about it as buying a box of popcorn at a theater or something like that. That's the type of dollar we're looking for if you're thinking about playing. And third, it should be a discretionary dollar. It should not be your food money or your rent money. And what I tell people, and one of the first statements I make at every presentation I make, and one of the last statements I make, and this is a person in the business of selling lottery tickets in the state, is if you need the money, don't play. We don't want your money. It's not that important to us.
That's very powerful. And obviously you're aware that some folks do commit those funds. You discourage it, though.
Absolutely. And I can go into the ways that we do discourage it. Unfortunately, in America is a free society, and adults are free to make decisions. Most adults, Greg, like yourself, make good decisions. But there's an element of the population that don't. We, as an agency, try to discourage or dissuade inappropriate play. For instance, we know that for every dollar we spend on advertising, we get $143 back in return. That's a huge return on investment.
That is.
We are spending 0.7% of our total take in advertising. Okay? We're allowed and permitted by law to spend 1%, so we're 30% under what we could spend. And when you see a lottery ad, generally it's going to be of a nature, it's informational on a game. It could be informational on a jackpot, like Powerball, or it could be simply just the beneficiary message, where the money goes, about school buses and the like. But you never see an ad, I don't think you've ever seen a South Carolina education lottery ad trying to bait people into trying to buy something which is not there. Because chances are, if you play, you're going to lose. And in terms of every gaming enterprise, and that's what this is in the long run when you peel the wrapper off the candy bar, this is a gaming enterprise. So the house always wins in the long run. What I would tell people, if you want to be entertained in the dollar for a dream type thing, play a dollar, win a $28 million Powerball jackpot on Saturday night. Buy one ticket. You got just as good a chance as anybody else. The odds don't change. Sit back, prop your legs up, and hopefully you'll win a prize. Chances are you won't, but who knows? You might win the $28 million.
Wow. Yeah. When you say those words, they're coming out of your mouth. You're the executive director. Chances are you won't.
That's right.
Chances are you won't. It's tough to make those points, but you got to make them because
Absolutely.
You recognize the reality of that.
What we hope to, again, we don't want to change. It's not our business to change people's minds about this enterprise, this public policy. But what we hope is at the end of the day that most South Carolinians, when they see what's happened with this lottery, will view it as a net societal benefit. In other words, they take all the pros and all the cons, add them up, and they see this is a net positive for the people of South Carolina.
Why is it that New Zealand or Mexico or others are traveling to South Carolina to see what you all have done? And share with viewers real quick when it began. I mean, this began just a couple of years ago.
Yes. I walked in the door August 7th, 2001. I walked in. We had temporary office, two temporary offices, one telephone line, and no employees. In 5 months, we started to run a $1 billion business. So the things you take for granted, not only the employees, but a desk, a chair, a telephone line, a fax machine, all that had to be built out. And the great thing is we did it in a way that we always looked at when we spend a dollar, do we really need to spend it? I always go by a concept, is it necessary or nice? If it's necessary, we spend the dollar. If it's nice, we don't spend it. And we have general staff meetings once a month. We talk about for every $5,000 we save, that's another kid on a life scholarship. And that means a lot to us.
The fascinating thing is you haven't pointed out what you taught in college, which seems like that would be the easy line to say. I was an accountant. I taught accounting. I know numbers. You haven't used them. Instead, you've used numbers wisely, talking about $143 for a dollar spent in marketing, being 30% under. You haven't highlighted that point. It's amazing. We've only got a few minutes left, Ernie, but you haven't driven that point home. But you understand the impact of every dollar spent.
Well, we're a business. We run a business, but we are running a unique business, and we want to make sure that everybody involved in our agency understands this is not our money, and we don't want to waste it, because money and resources are too precious to the people of South Carolina to throw it away. So what we try to do is make sure that we maximize that return once we get a dollar in. We get a dollar in. If you look at a pie chart, 58% goes to players for prizes, 7% goes to commissions. 2.1% are gaming contract costs by procurement, state procurement, low bid. 0.7% is advertising. 1.7% is my overhead. 30.5% hits the bottom line. In a lottery business, that ranks number 6 in the country right now.
That's why you got folks in Mexico and New Zealand coming in to see something that's a little more than, you're talking about 40 months old.
Yes.
40 months to see 30% going to the bottom line. If I had the first 40 months of my company doing that, I don't know where we'd be right now. That's fantastic.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's got to be a good feeling.
And I set that on the basis of my staff, because it's all about the people we've hired. That's where it goes back to.
When you talk about your staff, and when you talk about that, I mean, we talk about Secretary of State Hammond giving out those awards to the charities. I remember when Jim Miles was doing it, and we think of that aspect. I mean, this is almost like a charity. I don't want to use that word, but because you all are giving so much more back to the state, and because this is going entirely into education, and because you're running less than a 2% of overhead, I mean, you all would be at the top of that angels list.
Well, we're cognizant of that, and we want to make sure we are efficient and run this in an appropriate manner. I'm not maximizing lottery sales, as I said. I could do things that maximize lottery sales.
Yeah.
I'm not doing that. We're doing very well as we are now, but we want to make sure that when we take that dollar in, we make sure that the maximum amount hits the bottom line for education.
And I can say that from our point of view, and I want anyone to recognize that. There are a lot of shows that my station would air where we would say, hey guys, this will get the folks who play the lottery, and you all say, we don't want those folks. I mean, if that is that aspect, we don't want to go after that, because we don't want folks spending money that they do not have to spend.
Absolutely. We're serious about that. And we in our cycle of advertising, we have a play responsible message that makes that point. The odds of winning, especially like the Powerball jackpot of 1 in 120 million, I mean, that's the needle in the haystack. But be that as it may, if you want to play, view it just as being entertained. Dream, for $1 and see what happens.
Now, when this guy had his 7th child, did he say, you know, lucky 7 just runs in my blood? Did it just run in your blood? Or?
Yes, and I had 7 kids, and all of them on the college scholarships they earned were on my account. In other words, I paid the freight.
Right.
The great news is if you have a lottery life scholarship, $5,000, that's like getting an $8,000 or $9,000 family wealth raise, whether you play this thing or like it or not. And we want every South Carolina individual and citizen to access that.
Those are key words, access. Every South Carolina resident. We got 30 seconds. If you were going to make the most important message, if you had 30 seconds and we're talking to a 7th grader, what would that, or to a high school student or to a high school parent, what would that be, Ernie?
Oh, absolutely. Just do your best. You know, we got evidence proves from our hiring practices here in the lottery that we've got talented people in the state, and they just want an opportunity to show that talent. And we've got great people. So just do your best. I want to get this little plug in.
Yeah.
SCEducationlottery.com has this information on a website, how education wins, or you can go to any lottery retailer and get this information, not about how to play the lottery, but how to access the benefits and where the money goes and who makes those decisions.
And for our viewers who don't go online, they go to a retailer, the retailer doesn't have them, is there a phone number they could call?
Well, they can always call our lottery office, which is area code 803-737-2002, and get this brochure.
Okay. Ernie, thanks so much for being with us this morning. Absolutely. Stay tuned to more Carolina People with Ernie Passailaigue Jr. coming up next. Expanding the horizons for South Carolina students. Those are such key words. Normally when you hear words like hope and life, you don't think of the lottery. If you've been sitting here the last 30 minutes, you would have heard that story. You need to help Ernie share that story. Share it to so many folks. K through 12 is being impacted. It's not just colleges. Think about a dilapidated bus and getting it fixed up, or even buying a new bus. A lot of folks are being impacted. If you've had to run out and now you're coming back, just know, head out to a retailer, whether you're buying a lottery ticket or not. Take the time to pick it up where the money goes. If the retailer doesn't have it, there's 3,500 of them in the state. Somebody's got it. Call the South Carolina Education Lottery. Go to SCEducationlottery.com.